Hello, hello. We'll kick off in just a couple of minutes. Waiting for folks to come in, waiting for Will to get here. It's been a big week. I promised Rebecca that I would go easy on Will today. Welcome, everyone. Just waiting for our host, Will, to join us today. We'll kick off in just a few minutes. Just want to make sure you're not coming into the room in silence. Hello, welcome.
All right, cool. Just making sure you can hear me.
Yeah, you sound good. Mic check. Mic check. All right. Well, it's 10:02 a.m. I feel like let's kick off. I know you've been very busy this week, Will, so I think we can just kind of dive straight in. Um,
Yeah, let's
hello.
do it.
Awesome. Yeah, everyone, welcome back to our LAMINA1 Friday AMAs. As I mentioned when we kicked off a few weeks back, kind of all summer long, we're going to be spotting a combination of core team members, creators, partners, and builders on the chain who are kind of helping to shape the network and this kind of next era that we're going to be kicking off really soon on Lamina1. So today's topic on that note is our official upgrade to a sovereign layer 1 on the Avalanche network. In case you missed it, there's an announcement that we put out this week on Wednesday that kind of goes into, what the transition was and shares a link from the Avalanche Help Center on, what Etna is and kind of what it entails for the network. But we also figured, let's have an AMA about it and talk through it. So joining us today is Lamina1 CTO Will Carter, who's, as you all may know, a regular contributor to past AMAs, who has been heads down for quite some time now. And yeah, he's excited to come on and share some progress and development and what the team's been up to this week. So hello, Will, and welcome back.
Good to see you all, and sorry for the extended silence, but we're happy to be on here and reconnecting on a regular basis again.
Yeah, awesome. So let's dive in. I think easy, quick starter question is just kind of like, let's start with what we mean by upgrading to a sovereign layer 1 on Avalanche. Like, what does this actually mean? Why did we do it? Give us a brief overview.
Yeah, so I think it's important to just really recap where we came from. Like initially, we chose the Avalanche architecture based on a thesis that um, any major mainstream platform by itself would have a hard time operating on the limited throughput and bandwidth and high transaction fees of a single blockchain. But to compound that by adding multiple projects, multiple applications on top of that single data structure is basically infeasible. It's like trying to run Netflix, Facebook, and I don't know, Amazon on the same web server. It doesn't scale. And so we decided pretty early on that there was going to come a time when the types of partners that we're trying to get onboarded onto this platform are going to need their own essentially server. They're going to need their own compute, their own data structures, and that can be for a number of reasons. Some of it's performance, but also from a governance perspective. Some people might want to have no gas fees. Some people might want to have the gas fee in their own token. Some might want it to be proof of authority or proof of stake. So that's how we ended up sort of moving towards Avalanche. Was we wanted the ability to scale out the platform to support a lot of mainstream use cases, to have the flexibility of managing our own governance, of having our own gas token. And Avalanche wasn't the only platform or technology approach that was trying to do this. Cosmos, Polkadot, both of which I built on before, are also sort of trying to achieve the same thing, which is to allow projects to operate on their own chain. Um, they did something similar, but in the end, I think Avalanche's approach was the most cohesive because it really took into account the notion of a shared ecosystem. So having a common ground where assets could move between the chains. Um, and so we chose Avalanche very early on. As if any of you were here since the beginning, you'll remember we were actually a fork of Avalanche during BetaNet. And we migrated to mainnet as a subnet because we wanted to focus on the application layer. Um, and so this upgrade really, so this entire migration um, was based off of something called the Etna upgrade, which Avalanche pushed, I think it was earlier this year. Um, and that upgrade really solved a lot of the lingering technical issues with the subnet approach. Those primarily being there was a high barrier to entry. You needed to get Avalanche validators to validate your chain, and each one of those validators needs to stake 2,000 AVAX, which is quite a bit of money. And so, like, if you're coming to the ecosystem new, you need to either put up 2,000 times 8 AVAX to stake into the ecosystem in order to get your chain live, or you needed to convince some number of validators that you don't know to come operate your chain. And that's really hard to do as sort of a new and emerging chain when you need to have, um, a little bit more control early on until you understand who your validator set is and you can incentivize them properly. And so the Etna upgrade changed that by instead of requiring that 2,000 AVAX up front, moved to more of a fee structure. So we just pay rent on the Avalanche chain rather than dropping like a massive amount of AVAX up front. So that's one reason it changed. The other reason is in the original Avalanche architecture, our validator set as a blockchain. So the list of servers that are essentially operating our chain, that was all managed on the Avalanche P chain. And so we didn't have direct ownership of it. There were some ways that we could influence it and change it by having keys on the P chain, but um, that ownership, basically the ownership of our chain, was all established on someone else's chain. And the Etna upgrade basically allowed us to move all of that management of our validator set back onto our chain. And so, in the process of doing so, we accomplished a few things. We took back ownership of our validator set. So, all of the validators are managed on our chain. And we now only have to pay like a nominal fee of, I think it's 1 AVAX a month per validator to remain a part of the Avalanche ecosystem. So that's much cheaper than the original 2,000 AVAX upfront per validator. And yeah, so at the end of the day, it means that we have a chain that's sort of more independent, more affordable from Avalanche, while still remaining in the Avalanche ecosystem and benefiting from the other players in that ecosystem, but also like the notion of warp messaging and transacting across subnets.
Awesome. That was a super sufficient answer. I feel like you answered like five other questions on the list. But I think, um, yeah, I also wanted to
Hey
get.
Casey, I think it might just be me, but your mic's cutting out.
Oh, wait, is this one better? One, two,
Mm,
three. No, it's
no,
not.
not really.
All right, 1 second. If you're having a really hard time hearing me, I will just put a question in the chat and figure out what's going on.
Sounds good.
Okay.
What was the process like on the back end, and what did the migration involve technically? So this is a good question. Any of the upgrades, and we've done multiple upgrades to the chain so far, they literally start with something called an upgrades.json. So it's a file that defines, what changes are being made to the chain. It gets uploaded into each node, and the upgrades.json in this case added a new precompile to our chain, which again managed the validator set. So it's what allows us to continue operating the chain without resetting it, but adding new logic to it. And so that was the first step, basically uploading that new upgrade.json, and then launching a new set of validators that are going to be sort of the independent sovereign validators, getting them synced up with the chain, which, I mean, as many of you know, we've got millions upon millions of blocks. So that took a couple days. But once they were finally synced to the chain, then it's just a matter of signing a transaction and cutting over to the new validator set. Um, if any of you happen to be operating indexers or any other type of infrastructure, um, you like a node, you'll need to operate that or utilize that same upgrade.json. Otherwise, your node will disconnect from the network and stop syncing. And that's something we had to do with our sort of middleware as well. So the actual migration process itself was pretty smooth. It took a while because we have a ton of transactions and blocks, but it was very smooth. We're partners with AvaCloud and Avalanche, and so uh, same dishwasher. Uh, we're partners with AvaCloud and Avalanche, and so they have a dashboard that actually makes the migration and transition process from a traditional subnet to um, a like a sovereign L1 very, very easy. And we utilize that. They were very helpful in supporting the entire migration process.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Can you hear me better now that I've closed like 700 open tabs on my computer? Is that
We can hear you, just not better.
it didn't work. I also, so next question, I'm sorry, and I again will post this in the chat, but like, why is this an important milestone on the path to decentralization? Like, I feel like the Edna blog post talks about this a little bit, but like, how does this make us more independent and sovereign? Can we dive a little deeper into that question?
Yeah, so as I said, we manage our own validator set. So that's one thing. You don't need to be an Avalanche validator in order to now validate for our network. And that the primary thing that does is lower the requirements for being a node from a technical perspective. You don't need to validate the PXC chains anymore. I think you just need to sync them. But the other thing it does is lower the barrier to entry. So if we had opened up validators to the community, you know, 6 months ago, then each one of those validators would have needed to become an Avalanche validator. They would have needed to purchase 2,000 AVAX, stake it, and it just wasn't a very attractive proposition for maintaining an accessible community of validators. It really sort of lends itself to wealthier or sort of whalish type of infrastructure. And so, in theory, what this allows us to do is open up the validator set to community validators and offer a low barrier to entry to doing so. And of course, like the more validators you have, the wider the spread of both economically, geographically, um, of validator sets you have, the more decentralized you are. And that I think is an eventual like goal on the horizon for us. Um, we won't be opening up the validator set immediately. There isn't a technical reason for that other than um, in part of the side effect of doing this upgrade is because we are managing our own validator set, we need to write a new set of contracts to incentivize node operators. So that's not done automatically. We would need, right now, it's just a pure proof of authority type of system. If we wanted it to be closer to a proof of stake like system where people can just opt into validating and immediately receive rewards, the smart contracts need to be developed for all of that. And right now, our primary focus is on the platform and the application layer, getting some of these new partners onboarded and some of these really cool new features implemented. And so I think the time will come when we'll come back to community operated infrastructure and validation, not just for the blockchain, but for some of the other features we're working on with spaces. Um, but like this does technically make community validation a little easier. We're just not going to be pushing the green light on that just yet.
Awesome. Yeah, Ed asked a good question in the chat. I think I should be sounding better now, right? Is it sounding
Way better.
better?
Yep.
Hell yeah. Okay. So Ed asks, like, what kind of system requirements would you need for a validator with the kind of current network load and block count?
I You don't need anything particularly beefy other than a pretty large SSD at this point, because our chain is getting bigger and bigger very quickly. You're going to need a lot of storage space. That space should be pretty quick to access. So I would say an SSD or an NVMe, ideally. Uh, Anything from like a 4 to 8 core CPU is probably sufficient. Sort of depends on what else you would be doing with the node, other than validating, if you're operating an indexer on it, or um, using it for like opening up the API to, or the RPC endpoint to other people. That'll drive up requirements. But just for syncing and validating, I think like a 8 core max, but probably 4 core sufficient CPU. Uh, I think like 16 to 32 gigs of RAM and a, a lot of SSD space. I don't know off the top of my head what the database size is post migration, but I can get that information for you guys and we'll update the docs.
Awesome. Yeah. And thanks, Jackal Girl, for like being ready to help chip in work on a manual. Really excited to get our ambassadors activated on helping to, build some of this stuff out. Speaking of kind of chatter, some community members, kind of in response to the announcement that we put out on Wednesday about this upgrade, kind of like have been chatting in the channels that they feel like this is a return to the, original vision of hosting subnets for worlds and experiences, and that like this is kind of bringing us closer to like, what they were really excited about when they read the first Lamina1 white paper. Like, is that kind of how you see it? Any kind of thoughts or reactions of your own to that reaction? I feel like that was a big kind of community sentiment coming out of this announcement.
I mean, there's two things I would say to that. First, yeah, I mean, obviously the lower barrier to entry definitely makes it a lot more practical and feasible to
Mhm.
operate new subnets or launch new subnets for major projects or projects that just want their own dedicated environments. That's certainly true, and really lays into our original thesis of this technology approach, and makes it all a lot more viable. The second thing I'd say is like we weren't expecting this, but one of the things that we had always wanted to do as a fork of Avalanche and implement was this notion of a subnet of subnets. And so like in our case, we now operate the validator set for our chain on our own subnet rather than on the P chain. Um, but we wanted it so that we could have like say a hierarchy of subnets. Like there could be a Lamina1 subnet, and then there could be subnets underneath that subnet. So let's say the identity subnet is one of them, and let's say we have like one of the partner subnets that one of these partners that we're onboarding. Maybe they want their own subnet. All of those subnets could be managed within the Lamina1 subnet, and so that's something that is facilitated here and is pretty interesting, because it would mean sort of centralizing the L1 reward system. So, like giving people L1s that's incentive for operating validators. It could extend that incentive system across like an entire ecosystem of L1 affiliated subnets. Um, so I think that's really interesting to explore at some point in the future. I think it is a little further down the line, as I was saying, because uh, right now I think what we really want to do is sort of make the platform and product itself a little more usable, so that we can attract the types of projects that would require that type of infrastructure. But for now, yeah, it absolutely is more in line with our original vision of how Avalanche should work. And so, yeah, we're excited about it. It's a great upgrade.
Awesome. Jacko Girl asks, would you be willing to support light nodes, like ones that download headers but don't maybe independently finalize all the blocks? Any any ways to negotiate? I feel like people have been wanting to run validators and nodes for a very long time on this network.
Yeah, this is sort of what I was hinting at. We've always talked about validators as being sort of the infrastructure providers from the community, but there are other ways to provide infrastructure in a community. Some of it might just be to be like an indexer or to be someone who's like syncing the chain and providing RPC endpoints for the community, or if we go to an extreme, like operating their GPU or lending their GPU to the network to operate AI models, or like serving rich media content to customers on the platform. There are a number of different infrastructures outside of just validating a blockchain that are core to our product that I would love to see at some point, either operated by the community or enhanced by the community. So light nodes, like, sure, we don't really have an incentive structure in place or in mind just yet for how we would support that. I mean, it gets trickier when you move away from a validator to how you like incentivize these infrastructure providers. How do you prove that you're actually serving the rich media content on demand, or that you're actually up to date? That's all sort of handled for you by consensus as a validator, because you're validating blocks and signing those blocks. But the trust assumptions change when we look at different types of infrastructure providers. And so we would need to work out exactly how to prove that you're doing your job for these different types of infrastructure nodes. But it's certainly something I would like to see in the future. It's just quite a bit of work to implement. Not to say, like, if you want to operate any of these nodes and offer it as like a service to the community, you can obviously do that. But if you wanted like direct incentivization uh, from the chain, that's something that would take a while to figure out.
Super interesting though. Yeah. Ed asked, was the identity subnet also upgraded to be sovereign at the same time?
It was, yes. So we did
Yeah.
both. We actually did the Fuji test nets, both of them first, just to prove out that it worked and wouldn't totally destroy our infrastructure, middleware, and the hub. Everything went really smoothly. We did have to upgrade, the exchange nodes and all that fun stuff. But yeah, once that was done, we did both of the mainnet subnets at the same time.
Awesome. And is it 100% like finished? I know we talked yesterday and you were like, it's almost there. Like, is there anything else that needs to kind of go through with the process, or are we completely transitioned?
I think at this point we're completely transitioned. Bernie's in here. He was finalizing the changes. Bernie, are you in here? Are we good?
Are we good, Bernie? Oh my gosh, I see
He's
him
typing.
typing. Yes.
All
Thumbs
right.
up.
Yeah, so it
Amazing.
finalized. We got the notification at 2 a.m. this morning that the nodes had finished syncing. And I think a couple, like 2 hours ago, we went into the dashboard and we're signing the transactions to convert the validator set. So it sounds like everything's should be back up and running. We will need to chase up any partners that have nodes that don't have the new upgrade.json. I think Ed Keys had mentioned one was down. So
Mhm.
yeah, if anything's down that you were operating, then let us know and we can get you that new upgrade.json. But I think we'll post it to the integration GitHub later today. So any of you who know where that is, we can put a link to it in the chat. But it offers some instructions on how to perform the upgrade as well.
Yeah, definitely hit me up, tag me. I'll keep the engineers up to date on if anything's kind of broken on your guys' end, but amazing. So let's kind of branch out a little bit. So we've gotten really technical. We've kind of talked a lot about this Avalanche migration. So like is this migration going to be a foundation for any other kind of upcoming tech upgrades, features? Like, eh, why do this now? Like, I think you can kind of tell that I'm starting to kind of walk us towards the rampant community questions we've got around like roadmap. What are you guys working on? Like, what's happening under the hood?
There are good reasons for it. There's some announcements I think we're going to make here pretty soon. I don't think we can make them just yet, but things are getting closer and closer by the day. Um, but yes, there are some like partnership announcements that will be coming up soon, and I think this will play into. Yeah, Rebecca's biting her tongue. This will play into those announcements as well. Roadmap wise, we've just sort of finalized internally a 6-month plan to include like feature development and partner onboarding and um, some of the stuff we're hinting at but can't quite say yet. And so like it's all sort of finally coming together and being put on paper and sort of everyone's agreeing to it. And we're really excited to share it with you. But it's going to be probably just a little bit more time before we can make that public. But in the meantime, we've been trying to push as many sort of smaller feature updates as possible as quickly as possible. So, we released the username management system here, which I think was a really important feature. A lot of people bought a bunch of usernames pretty early on, had no way to change between them or renew them. Now you can easily switch between them. We've automatically renewed everyone's username for a year, as you probably saw. In the future, we're probably going to be moving to a more dynamic pricing system for usernames. So yeah, we've been working on that as a feature. Another big feature is the marketplace. We've got prototypes operating for that already. So working on integrating that into the hub and then sort of looking at what that's going to look like with some of these announcements that's coming up. That's another big thing we've been working on. And then some moderation tools. Uh, Part of these announcements we're making, hopefully, are going to bring a lot of new blood and fresh daily users to the platform and chain. And so we've been doing some work building out moderation systems. So utilizing some AI tools to flag, uh, potentially bad or offensive content in anticipation of new people coming to the platform, so that we don't get overrun by spam or illegal or truly offensive content. There's a lot to say about that. We don't want to over moderate or censor people, and so we've been coming up with sort of, I think, will be a happy middle ground of the ethos here will be opt-in. So by default, in the hub, we'll hide stuff that's either uh, sexual in nature, violent in nature, self harm in nature, sort of the traditional uh, uh, breadth of offensive content will be hidden. And then I think the thought here is to offer sort of an opt-in approach. So if you do want to see more mature content, um, that's something you would have to manually opt into. And so a lot of the tooling we've done in the background has been to keep the moderation process scalable and smooth and automated, so that we can sort of scale quickly and not worry about overloading our friendly community mods and Ivy with moderating all this content.
And I kind of asked the same question as you. I was like, but what if you want to have an NSFW space? Um, yeah, I think, but I think
It's a
that's,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead. I feel like the opt-in is a very key word in your response there.
Yeah, like I think there's some discussion that still needs to be had on Lamina1, there's the infrastructure there, which is completely open. The chain is open. Do whatever you want with the chain. We can't stop you. There is the hub itself as a user-facing platform, and that is obviously not decentralized infrastructure infrastructure. It's an application that we operate on our own servers. And so like we're responsible for what we display on that platform. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily what's uploaded to the infrastructure in the blockchain, but like what we actually display to the end users. So there is going to be a limit, I think, no matter what's decided to the type of content that we're willing to support on this platform, obviously. And there's going to be very hard lines. But when it comes to the gray area, sexual violent content, that's something we still need to work out. There's regulatory issues there. We want to keep a wide mainstream audience. We want it to be friendly to all ages. And some of the partners are actually focused on like their target audience is teenagers. And so we need the hub to be sort of a sort of family friendly place by default. But I think a lot of us like the idea of enabling more mature content within reason, um, and with maybe some triggers or gateways in place to prevent kids um, from accessing that content. That's something we're exploring.
Yeah, definitely. The Steam model is pretty good. We've talked about that a little bit, but the kind of
Yeah,
upload.
yeah, Steam does
Yeah,
this well. You have to opt into adult content. Same with like Nexus mods, if any of you guys are modders. There's a couple platforms that do this quite well, and we'll probably lean into the same learnings.
awesome. So another kind of bigger question for the end of the AMA here, like what are you've been talking about a lot about kind of the smaller stuff we've been building, but Rebecca in the meantime is in the chat talking about expansion and dropping scintillating teasers. So could you at least answer like what are you personally most excited about in this kind of next phase for building at Lamina1?
Uh, Great question. So Spaces. I think I'm excited for what Spaces is going to facilitate. The current platform right now is it's a cool place to go and launch mint some artwork and throw food at each other and start establishing a user profile. But I think the end goal and what we really wanted to facilitate is having a home for like the creative process from initiation to distribution, or inception to distribution. So Spaces offering a home where people can finally start to build together, um, and to sort of interact with each other on the platform and to start building out real persistent IP and creative work, and finally to like building a community around that, distributing it, monetizing it. That's the stuff I think we're all excited about seeing on the platform. And that's what Spaces is going to facilitate. And some of the initial spaces to include some of Neal's IP is probably what I'm most excited about seeing finally come to life, and hopefully use it as a tent pole and a banner to show other creators a similar path for how they can develop new IP and ideas. So that's probably the most exciting thing in my mind that we're working on at the moment. Um, and we'll play into some of those announcements coming up.
Yeah, I'll be sure to quote unquote leak as much info. We're working on a white paper that we're going to be publishing in advance of that release, and we'll be having some user tests and all of that stuff. So really excited to show you that progress as we kind of work through that. Oh yeah, and Neal, I mean, I guess I'll probably answer in terms of like what I'm the most excited about, as Rebecca kind of just mentioned in the chat. We also have been working super hard behind the scenes, kind of on the note of spaces, with Neal on creating kind of like the artifact space. And so he has been writing like crazy, like chapters and really interesting parts for the story that we're kind of going to be starting to release as part of the build up to the artifact experience. So, God, we are so excited for that as well. It's been such a cool use case to start kind of building out the features across spaces, kind of matching that up to along with our other marquee partners at Owen Nowhere and Numidia Valley, which we've made previous announcements about. But yeah, get ready for, collaborative world Bible, like really cool evolving in-game collectibles. I can't say
It's gonna
much
be
more. We're
awesome.
gonna do a whole teaser AMA with Weta and Neal very shortly, but yeah, that's been like a really fun, really enriching thing that we've also been working on like crazy behind the scenes during this kind of heads down time that we're so excited about. Um, yeah. So Erasmus asks, can you share any of the key features of spaces?
Yeah. So Spaces right now, like we have a 30-page PRD, sort of just dreaming about all the things that Spaces could become and what those sort of end game features might look like. We're in the process of distilling that down into like the initial MVP feature set. So what it's going to look like on day one. I can say a little bit about that. So on day one, like primary things are going to be sort of the ability to publish content, rich media content outside of just the artwork that we've been discussing, have a feed of um, let's call them like Twitter, Reddit like posts within the space, both from like the space owners and moderators and admins, but also from the space fans. Those posts will have social functionality enabled. So the traditional things you would see in like Twitter, I'm not going to call it X Twitter or Reddit. So like embedded rich media, embedded comment trees, sharing functionality, reputation systems. That's all stuff that's being worked on. um, Marketplace functionality directly embedded in the space. That's a primary one so that the space can be monetized in a couple of different ways, not just sort of through NFT sales, but there's a couple other ways that you can monetize IP that you're building and the creative that you're building that we're exploring. And then, yeah, longer term, there's some richer social functionality we want to explore, not just like the ability to chat with each other directly or have forum posts, but um, like this ability to collaborate. So the ability, like embedded tools that would allow a space creator to engage with their community to build out the IP. So Ivy had mentioned like a collaborative world Bible is an example, or contributing to concept art, or so it's sort of like the tools that would enable the community to come together and really collaborate on what the IP becomes and how it evolves. And those are all the things that I think are going to be really exciting.
Amazing. Um,
Cash.
hashtag Adocash. Yeah. Anything else that you're willing to leak or want to clue the community into before we sign off? I hope we gave you guys enough teasers, and God, we're just so excited to share a lot of this progress, and it's really great to be back on with you all.
Yeah, I think likewise. We're excited to tease some stuff out. I think that's it for today in terms of what I'm willing to uh, give out as teasers, but we'll have, prototypes coming out soon. I would like to get like an initial sort of clickable prototype of the MVP of spaces to some of our top testers to start playing with soon. And marketplace functionality and some of this moderation functionality that all hopefully will get into top testers' hands soon. But I think there's going to be some more official announcements coming down the pipeline. So we'll save
Totally.
the remaining teasers for post uh, post announcement.
Sounds good. Thanks so much again, Will, for joining us. And yeah, we'll be back next Friday with another AMA. Haven't quite landed on the topic, so I'll let you guys know. And also, I mean, we've got a ton of ambassadors here, so we're also going to be having another ambassador working group on the top tester stage next Thursday to kind of review the launch of questing, next steps for participation. You all have been super helpful with feedback and stuff on the launch of Questing on Intract, which happened last week. So thank you all so much. And yeah, see you all next time. Yeah, we'll see you on Friday, regardless of what the topic is. I'll announce something early next week. But Thank you all so much. We'll see you in the channels.